What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. We hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and we want to welcome you to our official Dallas Cowboys post-game show here at Blogging the Boys. We stream this live on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe. We recently passed 15,000 subscribers. Grateful for all of you who have chosen to be a part of this ride with us. Also available on our Facebook page. We do podcast this for you as well. Available on the the Blogging the Boys podcast network. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a rating, write a review. Those things help us out more than you understand. I'm RJ Ochoa. Let's go ahead and begin. The Dallas Cowboys were embarrassed. They were humiliated. They were outplayed, outcoached, outwitted, outmatched, outplayed, outlasted, to use all of Jeff Probst's adjectives on the beloved show of Survivor. Although this season that show sucks as much as this Cowboys game did. This was bad. This was a really, really, really bad loss. As Andre says on YouTube, yikes. I don't know that yikes qualifies it. In fact, poetically, Joshua chimes in on the Facebook side of things. Freaking yikes. This was awful. Kevin saying disgusting display today. A reminder that this is your post-game show, people. I am merely your puppeteer. You control all of the strings. Whatever you want to talk about, we will get into. We will talk winners and losers, although I will tell you that we have 10 and there is only one single winner. That means we have 9 losers to get to. This was awful. C Laws, man, just a bummer of a point. And I knew this was coming. On our Facebook stream says, let's never wear the red stripe again, ever. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I loved the right stripe. I read the right stripe. My words are all over the place today, just kind of matching the Cowboys' performance. I loved the red stripe, but I knew I had the moment where I thought, and I tweeted this, I'm on Twitter at RJ Ochoa, people are going to say that this was a curse of the red stripe, the way people say that the blue jerseys are cursed, the navy jerseys are cursed, whatever. That thought did cross my mind. But this was shellacking. I mean, this was devastation is too far. I think that, we have to compartmentalize. We have to contextualize this game, but there's no question about it. The Cowboys were simply beaten. They were beaten to a pulp by a Denver Broncos team that a lot of us overestimated. A lot of us looked past it. In fact, and look, I've been wrong. I will continue to be wrong. But I had a lot of people, speaking of my Twitter, in my Twitter mentions here in our comments saying, you know what? I'm rooting for the NFC East. I want to see all those draft picks be as worse as possible. I'm rooting for them. And to be very clear here, I am in no way saying that the NFC East is not going to be won by the Dallas Cowboys. I don't believe that for a second. But this is why you don't take advantage, or rather you don't count your chickens before they hatch. You don't assume anything in the NFL. This is a weird week. I've got the Red Zone channel on behind us as our post-game show has started here, and the Buffalo Bills just lost 6-9 to the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is a league where anything can happen. The Minnesota Vikings, who Cooper Rush just beat, are in overtime at the moment with the Baltimore Ravens. And so it's a crazy game. It's a crazy league. It's a crazy sport, and that's what makes it so much fun, but it's also what makes it so frustrating. Tyler, with our first super chat of the show, says, trade Zeke, most overrated and overplayed player ever. He needs to go. Just stop. Trade now. Tyler, I appreciate your thought. I appreciate your criticism. I appreciate your emotion. I mean, there's no financial, reprieve for the Cowboys from trading Zeke. We're past the NFL's trade deadline, by the way. I don't know if you're just speaking out of frustration. Zeke was not the problem today. There were a lot of problems. Zeke got hurt, had the knee contusion, was questionable to return, ultimately did return. In fact, I think Tony Pollard had a worse game. Tony Pollard had the great kick return to start the game, but Tony Pollard had a critical drop on 2nd and 7 that wound up being a possession where the Dallas Cowboys lost the ball. And so things are not going great. And we knew this, right? We said a long time ago during the win streak, and I'm seeing here the Browns final score against the Bengals, 41-16. They are both 5-4. The race in the AFC North certainly very interesting. But we said the Dallas Cowboys are going to lose a game. And something I said about a month ago, I said, I bet you it could be that game against the Minnesota Vikings. I don't think any of us saw them losing against the Denver Broncos, but the thing about the NFL, the thing about sports, you could argue the thing about life, although I'm not any sort of philosophical person or, genius in that sense, or even, kind of genius. But I mean, in the NFL and football and sports, you win games you're not supposed to, right? Like that happens. And that happened last week. And that's why we celebrated. That's why we said kudos to Mike McCarthy. We threw a bunch of roses at people. We said, you win the games you're not supposed to. You're going to be an elite team when it's all said and done. But sometimes you lose games you're not supposed to. And the Dallas Cowboys lost a game today against the Denver Broncos that they definitely were not supposed to lose. Eli Perkins, thank you for the super chat, says we looked like paper tigers today. Yeah, I think that's being too kind. I think the Cowboys looked like one of the worst teams in the NFL. Does that mean they are one of the worst teams in the NFL? No, but today they looked very bad. I was really high. A lot of us were really high on the Cowboys. I write power rankings every Tuesday at our site, and I had the Dallas Cowboys as the very best team in the National Football League. And obviously that's not the case. Obviously, a lot of things took a hit today. I think Dak Prescott's MVP candidacy took a hit today. Right now, it's Matthew Stafford's, award to lose at this particular point. And obviously there's a lot of football left. The Cowboys are 6-2, people. And I know that we want to win every game. And I'm not saying that this makes the loss manageable or this makes the loss good or this makes the loss whatever, but this is far better if we circled back, if we Marty McFly'd this and we went back to the conversations we were having in June and July, and if I had told you that the Cowboys would be 6-2 through 8 games, you would have taken that then. Now, I understand that the taste of this loss and the taste of this game is a little bit more bitter than you would have liked, but they are 6-2, and that is ultimately what matters the most, the context of the season as a whole. But obviously, we're here today to discuss this particular loss to the Denver Broncos. Jay Arrowwood says, I'm glad I'm in Scotland on vacation and missed this ridiculous effort. Jay, what time is it in Scotland? I have no idea. Shout out to the United States, of course, falling back. It's going to be dark sooner than later. CJ says rebuild time. I hope that's a joke. But Calvin says, wow, Vikings picked. It does seem like the Ravens are about to win this game. Let's see here. I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. Jixiu, difficult name to pronounce. Apologies here. Says, Arj, do you think this team is the same old Cowboys or one bad game? So I co-host a show on the Blog on the Boys podcast network that drops every Wednesday called the NFC East Mixtape. This is a show that I do with Brandon Gouton. Brandon is the me from our Philadelphia Eagles side here at SB Nation, Bleeding Green Nation. And every Wednesday, Brandon and we talk about the state of the NFC East. We talk about, the division as a whole, how teams are looking. Obviously, for the last month and a half, it's been a lot of fun for me and not a lot of fun for Brandon. But, Brandon and I were chatting in this game right now on Slack, just kind of talking about stuff. And I said, we were scared to believe in the Cowboys, and this is why. And I think that, we talked about this on our roundtable show here on the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel earlier in the week. We've all got a lot of emotional scar tissue when it comes to this team. And that's what was so impressive about last week's win against the Minnesota Vikings was that was the game that this team usually lost. The game that they were kind of playing with house money in. They generally lost, and then we would have sat and we would have talked to ourselves about how everything was great, how everything was fine, how everything was not worth panicking, how, what were they supposed to do? They were without Dak Prescott, et cetera. And we said, this is why, this is how we know that this team is different. And so today, this loss, this does feed that. This does pick at that. This does pull at those scars and those scabs that we have where it says, you know what, you're not an elite team. You're going to fall flat. This ride is going to end. The clock is going to strike midnight, and the magnificent carriage is going to turn into a pumpkin. We all have those fears and those reservations about this Cowboys team because, if you're 35 years old or younger, you've known nothing else for the Dallas Cowboys. And so it's difficult to get past that emotion. But let's see here. Let's get to your comments. Larry says the defense non-existent. You're definitely going to see that in our losers list. Eric says talking heads are going to complain about Dak, but the O-line was a sieve. This was, look, this kind of segues us into our winners and losers. And I think we have to start here. You will not find somebody that loves Dak Prescott more than me, more than you. I know a lot of you are Team Dak. We've been Team Dak for a long time. We believe in Dak Prescott. This game doesn't change that. This game doesn't shake that in any way, sense, or form. But this game, because you know how the internet works, this game is going to pull out the haters. The haters are coming. The haters are coming, and they're saying they're fun, snide comments, how Cooper Rush won last week, how Dak this, Dak that. And to be honest, while I agree that the offensive line did not play well, one of my losers is Dak Prescott. This was one of the worst games of Dak Prescott's career. And I think that it's okay to say that. It doesn't mean you love Dak less. It doesn't mean that you don't believe in him long-term. It doesn't mean that you think the Cowboys made a mistake with the contract. Anybody saying those things is simply trying to agitate you. But Dak was awful in this game. And there's a lot of context that's necessary in that. Dak hasn't played, or hadn't played prior to this game, played an actual game, obviously practice and whatnot, since the Cowboys went to New England. I mean, that was a long time ago. You factor in the bye week. You factor in not playing against Minnesota. You factor in the injury that he dealt with, obviously the calf strain. You factor in the personal loss that he obviously had to deal with in his family. And so there's a lot going on there. But objectively, this this was a really, really, really bad game for Dak Prescott. And that's okay. That doesn't mean anything other than that. It was a bad game for Dak Prescott. Didn't get a lot of help. I mean, there's a lot of blame to go around in this game. There were a lot of receivers that ultimately dropped passes, not just receivers. I mean, the Cowboys defense did Dak Prescott no favors, but he's the quarterback. He's the face of the team. He's the guy who wills this team back into victory. And I know the Cowboys scored 16 points there at the very end, but I mean, I'm willing to categorize those 16 points as garbage time, and I think you are too. And so the Cowboys ultimately got shut out as far as the game was really ultimately concerned. And so to get shut out, I mean, regardless of the circumstances, it's just not a good look for Dak Prescott or for this offense as a whole. Eli Perkins, thank you again for the super chat. Says any given Sunday, anything can happen. That's totally true. Again, you look at what happened today across the NFL. The Buffalo Bills, but people think the Buffalo Bills are better than the Dallas Cowboys. But and look, the Cowboys lost, and I know right now you don't want to hear the Cowboys are better than anybody, but the Buffalo Bills just put up 6 points in Jacksonville. I mean, yeah, on the road technically, but still, it's the Jaguars. I mean, and the Bills coming off their bye. I mean, it's a bad look for Buffalo. I mean, they're not coming off the bye, but still, the point is, I mean, really, really, really bad game for the Bills, and it happens. Teams are going to play bad games. The Green Bay Packers, a whole different, discussion considering the events of the last week, but the Green Bay Packers got, destroyed in week 1 against the New Orleans Saints. We've seen, the Kansas City Chiefs, again, haven't necessarily been great at any point this season, but obviously struggling. There is no team in the NFL, no team in any sport that is going to play exemplary from start to finish. This just isn't going to happen. And so Cowboys kind of paying the consequences for that. But on the subject of Dak Prescott, and I'm curious for your thoughts if you're with us live on YouTube or Facebook, something I believe, and I don't know that anybody's going to be able to talk me out of this. It was insane. It was categorically insane. It was categorically irresponsible to leave Dak Prescott in the game at the very end. I hated this. And I have given Mike McCarthy an enormous amount of props. I have been somebody who has tried to champion the decision-making, the changes that Mike McCarthy has instituted. I think that Mike McCarthy has done a wonderful job as the Cowboys head coach. Certainly much more of a wonderful, whatever. He's done a better job than most people are willing to give him credit for. However, the decision to leave Dak in the game late like they did was ridiculous. And there's very little that the Cowboys can say to defend that line of action or that line of thought in my mind. If we revisit what happened last week, now America's Team on YouTube says, RJ, maybe Dak wanted to keep playing. Stop blaming Mike for everything. First of all, I don't blame Mike for everything. But you know what? Dak wanted to play last week in Minnesota. And what was the conversation? What was the talking point all week long? Sometimes we have to protect Dak from himself. He wants to play. He wants to be out there. But we have to make the wise decision. This is a long-term game. There are long-term consequences at stake here. And so if you're going to be the team that is going to bench Dak Prescott last week against Minnesota, and to be very clear, that was the responsible decision, and the Cowboys got away with it by winning that game by starting Cooper Rush. That was the responsible decision. But if you're going to be that team, if that's going to be your line of thought, then it's ridiculous. It's actually dumb. It's stupid to leave him out in this game and have him be taking shots, have him be running quarterback draws, and respect to Dak, the heart of a competitor, all the cliches you want to rile up there. But that is not smart for the good and the long term of this team. And the Cowboys, they gambled with that. They did not want to wager that last week against the Vikings, which is why they sat him. Why they did it against the Denver Broncos remains unknown. The only logical conclusion that can be drawn, again, maybe Dak wants to be out there. Okay, that's great. But you know what you have to do, Mike? If you're the head coach, you got to say no. You got to say enough. You got to say this game is over. You got to be out of here, man, because next week we're playing the Atlanta Falcons. The week after that, we're playing the Kansas City Chiefs. 4 days after that, we're hosting the Las Vegas Raiders. You cannot be out there right now. It's bad for you, and if it's bad for you, it's bad for the rest of us. And Mike McCarthy didn't just leave Dak Prescott out there. Left a lot of players out there. Look, it's okay to wave the white flag. It upsets us. It's boring, but it is okay. And that's what they did against Minnesota, and they did not do it late in this game. Those lines of thought do not jive with one another, which is why it's so upsetting that Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys staff did this. Let's see here. Brenda says, irritated because Cowboys weren't on TV today. Guess they figured the Cowboys would be viewed more than the Texans. Shame on Houston TV services. Ridiculous. Brenda, I've got some family that lives in Houston, and they were texting me early on how they were stuck watching the Texans game. My thoughts, my hopes that, hopefully next time you won't have to deal with this, but it's unfortunate. Welcome to local TV. And it's, the way the NFL has the Sunday ticket and whatnot, it's just difficult. We got to find a better way, people, to be able to, set this thing up for people that are fans of different teams that live in different places. But let's see here. Eileen says, I hate when we lose. We cry too much and we blame the won't people. None of us are coaches in the NFL. Please stop. I mean, I don't know who you blame in this game except for the Cowboys. And again, like, it's okay to say that the Cowboys were really bad in this game, but they're still a really good team, all things considered. Both things can be true. And that's the case here. This was one of the worst games the Cowboys have played in a very long time. This is arguably, I think, the worst game the Cowboys have played under Mike McCarthy, with Dak Prescott under center. They were obviously not doing well early on last season, but we saw at least, the offense having success. This was a flat game. And you have to, if teams are flat, you have to look for a place to place that blame. And for me, it's Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy, I've been high on Mike McCarthy. All right. If you watch anything we do here at Blogging the Boys, if you read what I write at bloggingtheboys.com, if you follow me on social media, I have tried to sing the songs of Mike McCarthy for far too long, and nobody wants to hear them. All right. I don't like to sing a lot of things. I'm not that great at it, but this was not a good game, and they were flat. The Cowboys were flat in this game, and you cannot place that blame anywhere else but at the feet of the head coach. And Kellen Moore deserves a lot of blame. Dan Quinn deserves a lot of blame. I don't have them on my losers list because I ran out of losers because it was such a loser-filled game for the Cowboys. But, man, I mean, this was not good from Mike McCarthy, and it's okay. It's not okay in that, we're fine with it. We're going to be happy with this. We're going to settle for this. No, we're okay with this in the sense that the Cowboys are still a really good team. Their quarterback is still one of the very best in the National Football League. Mike McCarthy is still a good head coach, but this performance was dreadful. I mean, this was awful. Now, Kevin brings this point up. It is a bad day when you block a punt and the other team still gets the ball. I have a feeling that this is going to upset you. All right. What a dumb rule, NFL. Now, the Cowboys, look, I don't want to sit here and say that the Cowboys are constantly getting, or they're on the wrong end of calls or whatever in the NFL. I'm not somebody that believes, that the Cowboys don't get calls or that the NFL has it out for them. I don't believe that in any way, shape, or form. But what I will say is that there have been a lot of weird calls that have worked against the Cowboys this season. Twice. Granted, they were in Cowboys wins. Dak Prescott scored at the goal line, and both times they were ruled not to be touchdowns by the referees on the field at the given moment. Last week, CeeDee Lamb gets choked by Harrison Smith on the sideline, and we find out yesterday on Saturday that apparently his thumb got caught in CeeDee's chin strap. I'll believe it when I see it. However, in this game, this punt, all right, I understand what the NFL is saying the explanation is, but it doesn't make any sense to me. Here is the play that we are talking about. You obviously know the one. Let's see here. Eli, by the way, thank you for the super chat. Says, let's keep our head up, Falcons next week. Hashtag DC for Eli. You're going to get a lot of people that say, watch out, this team might lose to the Falcons. And those people are overreacting. But the Cowboys are going to beat the Falcons, but we have some things to talk about. So let's talk about this particular play, this punt, and how stupid it was that this did not turn into a Cowboys turnover. Now, look, okay, here we go. Malik Turner, who had a game, by the way. Malik Turner had 2 touchdowns. Malik Turner dives, gets the block. Awesome. All right, great. Let's see the other angle. Here he goes. Malik Turner block, and it's touched beyond the line of scrimmage. Denver recovers because the Cowboys touch it beyond the line of scrimmage. It's deemed a live ball. Denver can cover it. Blah, blah, blah. Stupid rule, stupid rule, stupid rule, stupid rule. I think this is dumb. I understand. And look, I am somebody who talks about something. If you didn't know, I believe in something called the purple pants rule. The purple pants rule is if you have a job and they pay you and they want to pay you all this money to do this job, whatever it is, but the job says in the contract that you signed, you cannot wear purple pants to work on Wednesdays, and you wear purple pants to work on Wednesdays after you sign that contract, you're at fault in my mind. It's a stupid rule, but you knew the rule when you signed the contract. You agreed to do the job, etc. So you knew the rule, so you're at fault. And a lot of people are saying, you know what, this is a rule. So, really you should blame John Fossil. Really you should blame the Cowboys players because they know the rule. They're supposed to know the rule. They have to know what's going on. They know the rule. What are they? They have to be taught. They have to be drilled. They have to be instructed. They know the rule. To that, I say, no, I ain't buying that. That doesn't make sense to me. It's a dumb rule. And fine, you want to live by the letter of the law. It's a rule. It was executed correctly. Fine. But this is a really dumb rule because how is any player when jumping up for a punt, a blocked punt, a muffed punt, a fair catch, whatever you want to call it, fair catch, wrong, forget that. But if any player is jumping up for the ball, do you think any player when jumping up, understands where they are relative to the line of scrimmage. You know why I hate this rule? And I don't want to bring up the Dez catch and say that they're the same thing, but the reason I hated the Dez catch rule, because it was a rule, and fine, it was implemented, it was stupid as well. The reason I hate that rule, and the reason I hate this rule, is because you are telling NFL players not to be elite athletes. The reason we like this game, the reason we watch, the reason we give all of our time and all of our energy and all of our, emotions to this cause is because we want to see amazing things. That's what we want to see. We want to be entertained in exemplary fashion. We want to see something amazing. We want to see people, physical, specimens, athletes do things that we cannot do because we're not that athletically talented. So when you tell a player right here, you have to be aware of the line of scrimmage, it's a dumb rule. It's impossible. Nobody can do this. This is insane. And so the fact that Denver could have their punt blocked and ultimately recover the football by improving their field position is incredibly dumb. It's incredibly dumb. It's stupid. And ultimately, I'm glad that the Cowboys were blown out because, look, I would not have wanted to have sat here and talked about, if that punt block had just gone the other way, the Cowboys would have won this game. I'm glad it was inconsequential, but it is a dumb rule. Let's see here. Keith says, we flat out got beat every part of the game today. I had us going 13-4 on the season. That's only our second L. We'll see how many, the Cowboys, how many games, how many wins, losses the Cowboys are going to walk away with. But dumb rule. Chris Lopez says, I'm sure Denver players thought it was a Dallas ball too. Here's the thing. And by the way, this Vikings Ravens game is still in overtime. There's a minute left. We might be on the verge of a tie. But this is a weird rule, and I'm not the first person to say this, but the rule should be, and people used to say this about the catch, or like, what is a catch, what isn't a catch? The rule should be, you go to random bar in America. You go to any bar, any state, any whatever, people watching football, and you ask them, you say, is this a punt block? If an overwhelming majority of people in that bar say, yeah, that's a block punt, it's a block punt. That's the rule. We know what we know, all right? This is the classic example of the NFL overcomplicated things. The NFL does that. The NFL likes to, get down to the nitty gritty and look at the fine detail, the fine print, whatever. I mean, it's stupid. It doesn't make sense. It's ridiculous and it's dumb. Donnie lets us know that the Ravens need a field goal to win. Oh, we're inside of a minute now here. The Baltimore Ravens about to attempt a apparently game-winning field goal. Tina, by the way, says the team just didn't have good vibes today. It's really a good way to put it. I mean, it was a rough game, rough loss for the Cowboys. Let's continue with our losers along that line. Overall energy. This was, Tina said it, bad vibes. This was bad energy, bad vibes. And you can talk about how it's a noon game. You can talk about it's a noon game coming off of Sunday Night Football. We can explain all this away or try to explain all this away, but you can't. BA says, make sense of this for us, RJ. You know what, BA? Sometimes in the NFL, you just lose. Sometimes you just have a stinker of a game. Sometimes you just suck. That's what it is. And that doesn't make it okay. But that's the most explanation you can offer here, is that this was just not the Cowboys' day. And sometimes that happens. You know what? Last week, it was not Minnesota's day. It's often not Minnesota's day, but sometimes that happens. We've seen teams lose. Last week, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers lost to the New Orleans Saints. And yeah, that's, a division rivalry. You can factor that in, et cetera, that particular detail, whatever. But the Bucs lost. I don't think any of us had the Bucs losing last week against New Orleans. By the way, Baltimore is about to attempt a 36-yard field goal to win against the Minnesota Vikings. We'll let you know exactly what is going to happen here. Chris Randall says, no excuse. A loss is a loss. Yeah, a loss is a loss. It sucks. Ravens win. MG says Ravens to the bowl. I agree. This was a game with bad vibes, bad energy, loser energy. I mean, to be very clear, I loved the aggression from the Cowboys early on in the game, going for it on fourth down. Granted, that I don't want to say that blew up in their face, but they obviously were overmatched. They didn't realize that they were. But I loved the idea, and I love that Mike McCarthy has been that. That is something that people still don't give Mike McCarthy enough credit for. But, it didn't go their way. And that's the thing. The decision-making process from the Cowboys on those fourth down attempts early on their first two possessions, which the Broncos obviously netted points off of, the decision-making process on those two possessions was correct. It was sound. It was fundamental. It was analytically supported. But sometimes it just doesn't work out, right? Like, you can make the right decision. You can say, we're going to go for it. Every point of data, every point of analysis suggests that we should go for it in this particular given moment. Okay, you've made the right decision. You've taken the right path at the fork in the road. But sometimes you're not going to get the fourth down attempt. And that's what happened there. It was tough. Now, Joel says the worst performance I've seen in a long time. If we're if we kind of throw out 2020, and I know that you're like, why are we throwing out 2020? But if we throw out 2020 under the qualifier that it was a weird year, they were without Dak Prescott, etc., this was probably the worst loss that the Cowboys, the full strength Cowboys, I guess is my point, have taken on probably since Thanksgiving 2019 against the Buffalo Bills. That was a rough loss. That was an embarrassing day. And that was a little bit different. Later in the season, things were kind of slipping away with a head coach who was clearly on the out. But I mean, that's the last one for me in terms of worst performance. Last one I have to measure again. So it is what it is. Eric says we have many degrees of freedom in the NFC East. We're winning the division. Totally. I mean, the New York Giants won today, but I'm hardly worried about them. You shouldn't be worried about them either. The Washington football team is on a bye. The Philadelphia Eagles, we'll see what's going to happen against the Los Angeles Chargers. For what it's worth, I did pick them to win this week, but I hope I'm wrong. I was obviously wrong on the Cowboys, but overall energy, big time loser here. Big time loser. Now let's keep going with our losers. We have 9 losers here, by the way, for our postgame show. For those of you that joined us late, we have one single winner. I think you can guess, but we're going to save the winner for last. So far on losers, we have already discussed Dak Prescott. We've discussed Mike McCarthy. We have discussed overall energy. Trayvon Diggs. What can you say? Tough game. And he had the great punch out near the end of the game. Peanut Tillman will be so proud. But man, this was not a good game for Trayvon Diggs, man. This was a rough game for him. This was maybe his worst game. This is definitely his worst game, I think, when in the era that people have expected a lot from him, right? Obviously, last season, rookie, did have 3 interceptions and that was cool. But, this season is when everybody has kind of expected him to be the guy. And in that time, in the post, he's the guy. Chargers, by the way, with the early lead in Philadelphia, about 50 seconds left in the first quarter. Chargers just scored a touchdown. But in the time that Trayvon has become the alpha, if you want to put it that way, this was his worst game. I mean, this was really, really, really bad. Kevin says he looked like the Diggs from early last year. Couple penalties, got beat for the big touchdown. Tina says I kept hoping for a pick. We all did, Tina. We all certainly did. And that's the thing. Like, people are going to, and I know you're not doing this, Tina, but a lot of people nationally, you're going to see this. All right. This is the turn that happens as we get through the rhymes and the rhythms of an NFL season. People are going to say, you know what? Trayvon Diggs just doesn't have it, doesn't have it anymore, whatever. Look at him. He's not getting interceptions anymore. We said this, the interception streak that he was on was unsustainable. That was never going to sustain itself ever. I mean, it was going to come to an end, and it wasn't going to just come to an end for one game. And then he was going to be back and picking balls off and whatnot. It's a difficult thing to do. And it's a difficult thing to do because so much of it is out of Trayvon's control. But the moments that Trayvon was involved were, generally speaking, not good in this game. And that is troubling. That's concerning. It doesn't mean the world is ending. Doesn't mean the sky's falling. But this was not a great game from Trayvon Diggs. An unideal set of circumstances from him in the Cowboys secondary today against the Denver Broncos. We move on. And let's go to the offensive side of the ball. If you have a loser on the offense that is not Dak Prescott, I would like to hear who you think it is. But by the way, Kathy says, I think Diggs is too much in his head right now. I don't know if I buy this. And I'm not saying I 100% disagree. I could see if you're doing something like that, like something incredibly special that Trayvon was, I could see him trying to just pull off the interceptions, right? Like trying to, really pull things off. Now, a lot of you are saying Terrence Steele, by the way, for offensive loser that isn't Dak Prescott. I do not have Terrence Steele on my loser list, to be very clear here. Let's see. By the way, I think we have a troll in the chat. If we can get our troll out of the chat, we're working on that. So don't worry. I know a few of you are complaining about the troll. Sometimes that's what happens. Welcome to live podcasting, live streaming, whatever you want to call this. But I do not have Terrence Steele on my losers list. The reason for that is that it was his first game at left tackle. I'm not saying like that gives him a pass or anything. He was awful. There's a difference between being bad and being on the loser list, because being on the loser list means that there's a level of responsibility you failed to live up to, right? We were expecting something of you. You disappointed us. And I think that I see we have taken care of the troll for 5 minutes. So we've put the troll in timeout. We'll do what we can, everybody. Again, this is a show of the people. You tell us to go after somebody, we're going to do what we can. So we got the troll. Consider the troll sniped. We did that for you, everybody. One love. But I think it was unfair to expect a lot of Terrence Steele. Now, I understand, obviously, that Terrence Steele had impressed us and we had grown to expect more from him. But, Cowboys said, hey, Terrence Steele, go play left tackle. Mike McCarthy himself has talked about how difficult of a proposition it is for offensive linemen to switch sides. He has compared it to doing something that every human does with the opposite hand, which is obviously a difficult idea to consider. We don't have to get into it. It's a family show. But so in that sense, I don't have Terrence on my loser list. Lisa seems to agree with me. Says Steele was not a loser. He was put on the opposite side. And now Owen says Steele got abused, man. Again, not a great game. Now Jose with the great point says on your list or not, Steele was a liability out there. They kept him hidden on the right side. Here's the thing, Jose, totally agree with you. That's on the coaching staff, right? Like that's not on Terrence Steele. Terrence didn't make the decision, right? Terrence isn't the one who decided, let me put me at left tackle and Lyle Collins on the right side. So for this, if I have to assign the blame for this, the action is what it is. You're right. Terrence Steele was a liability, was a problem for the Cowboys along the offensive line. The Kansas City Chiefs now officially up on the Green Bay Packers, by the way. Patrick Mahomes just hit Travis Kelce for a go-ahead touchdown. But I put the blame, I lay the blame at the feet of the coaching staff because they're the ones who made this decision. All right. So, but still, let's move on. I don't have Terrence Steele. I understand if you do, but he is not on my list because, again, if you're going to make the loser list for me, this is the way I do this. You have to have had some sort of expectation that we needed from you. We demanded from you. We asked of you. You are supposed to be that guy, and you were not that guy today. And that is partly why the results were what they were. Somebody who fits this definition, in my opinion, Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper had, a rough drop. And, that's, I'm not trying to make a mountain out of a molehill or anything. Amari Cooper was nice early on, but you cannot drop. And Amari Cooper kind of represents all the drops here for me. You had Tony Pollard with a big time drop. You had CeeDee Lamb with a drop. Amari Cooper obviously had a drop. And just, Dak was a loser here. Dak did not play well at all. But if you're going to have drops from your top two wide receivers and your pass catching running back, I mean, you can only do so much. And, that's just tough. It's tough to, it's tough. It's tough to overcome. It's impossible to overcome. If that's going to happen to you, you're going to have no points as far as the real time part of the game is concerned. Joel says receivers were dropping everything. And that's, Dak deserves his fair share of blame. McCarthy deserves his fair share of blame, but they're not the only ones. Now, Kevin says, LOL, Cooper's first drop of the year. That's the thing. Like, we've fallen into this luxury with Amari Cooper, right? Where our standards that he falls below are so ridiculously high that they are, impressive accomplishments for most people. So yeah, it's, it is ironic that he's a loser after his first drop of the year here on November 7th. But I mean, he costed his team today. He costed the Cowboys, and that's the point blank bluntness of it. But obviously, again, these people that make the loser list doesn't mean that we're out on them as players, but just means they had games that, were disappointing. Pierre says, I think it's just one of those games, sir. You know what, Pierre? I think you're right. Now Donnie says, what about that drop by Pollard? There was no need for him to jump again. I mean, just a broken game, a broken game in a lot of senses. So a broken game for the Dallas Cowboys. Let's see here. Let's move on. More losers here. This is kind of trying to cast a wide net because, I don't like to have more than 10 losers. Sometimes we'll do 12, or not losers, but winners, losers, honorable mentions, whatever. But 10's a nice number. Sometimes you go to 12. If there's a lot to discuss, it's 15. But I'm trying to cast a wide net here. And if I threw this net out, it would definitely make its way through because the Cowboys run defense, holy crap, man alive. I could have sworn that CJ Anderson was playing running back for the Denver Broncos today. I know it's too soon. I know it's too soon to make a CJ Anderson joke, but man, this was rough. And there are a lot of people who have rightly thrown credit and thrown praises at Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn, you just got run all over by the Denver Broncos. And again, Denver's, and we talked about this on our preview show here on the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel. If you watched, congratulations, you're a genius. If you didn't watch, wow, my feelings are really hurt. But something that we talked about was that Denver, from an offensive EPA per play standpoint, was better than most people thought. And again, I picked the Cowboys to win. You picked the Cowboys to win. We all thought this was going to be a walk in the park sort of victory for the Cowboys, but Denver was better, from certain statistical measurements offensively than a lot of people were willing to give them credit for. Now, their run offense, their running game in general was not necessarily this like world beating thing, but I mean, how many times, how many big chunk plays? It was just awful. And, early on, those first two possessions that the Cowboys had, things looked promising. It looked like, after the Cowboys went for it on fourth down to start the game, didn't get it. They force a punt, or they get the ball back and everything's awesome. We're thinking, all right, great. The Cowboys are going to have their way with the Broncos offense. No, I mean, and Tina brings this up. The defense was tired. You could totally say that. I mean, totally say the Cowboys defense, but you've got to have, you got to find a way. You want to be a team. You want to be this team that's going to be contending. You want to be this team that everybody's willing to crown. You want to be this group. You got to find a way. I know you were tired, defense, but it is what it is. Now Cairo says DQ didn't get run over. The D-line got run over. It's been happening all year. Teams just haven't been able to stick with it. Now, Cairo brings up a point, and we obviously all have enjoyed what the Cowboys defense has been able to do so far this year, how they've been able to keep the Cowboys in games. You look at the pick 6 against New England. You look at obviously last week in Minnesota, very impressive game overall. Cowboys defense deserves their fair share of credit as well. However, and this is a point we've been talking about if you've been paying attention, the Cowboys defense, while impressive in certain stretches, has been opportunistic. They have been opportunistic, and they have been, I don't want to say dependent, but they have been dependent upon big plays, upon turnovers, upon tackles for losses. They've been dependent upon those things to swing the game in the other direction, whether it was turnovers, whether it was big plays, big stops, 3 and outs, whatever the case may be. And this game was a clinic in what will happen to this defense if they don't get those big plays, if they don't force those turnovers, if they can't get stops. They're just not going to be able to stop anybody, right? Like, that's what it is. This Cowboys defense has, in the last 2 weeks, really, gotten allergic to turnovers, right? We were talking about this forever, averaging 2 turnovers per game, basically since week 3 on. And the last 2 weeks, it's been nothing. There's been nothing about turnovers, nothing about anything. And the Cowboys offense wasn't necessarily doing anything with the ball. So you can argue that turnovers wouldn't have helped. And you can argue that the Cowboys offense, if they'd gotten the ball off that block punt, could have scored, could have changed the complexion of the game, all that stuff. But the point is, this defense really just got gassed. Odessa says everyone played low energy except Parsons. 100% agreed. 100% agreed. And I think, I can't tell on Facebook what Odessa's profile picture is. It looks like it's a lion. Is it a lion, Odessa? You can let me know. I think it's a lion. It's a tiny box for me. It's some sort of cat-like creature. But either way, obviously Micah Parsons loves to talk about how the lion is always hungry. Hey. But I was distracted because Watsamata, thank you for the super chat, says nobody is in a super chat mood after this matter. Thanks, RJ. Not a fun job today, brother. Here's the thing, guys. I'm pissed and you're pissed and we're all sad and we're all mad and tomorrow's going to suck. And we all have friends and family members. Maybe you have a friend or a family member who's a Broncos fan. They're texting you, they're messaging you. Maybe, you watched the game with them. Odessa, thank you for confirming it was a line. I'll get to that in a moment. And it's annoying, right? Today's annoying and tomorrow's going to be annoying and Tuesday's going to be annoying and Wednesday's going to be annoying. It's going to be annoying until the Cowboys win again. And we're all kind of waiting to breathe that arrogance. We just got to hold this. But, this is still awesome. And I say that, relative to the context of it all. I would still take this over any day in June or any day in April. These are the moments that we miss. We miss in the offseason getting so worked up emotionally over the way this team plays football games, right? And so in that sense, I'm incredibly grateful, and we say this all the time, to experience this with you, and I'm so grateful that you choose to make us a part of your Cowboys fan experience. It sucks that they lose. The Cowboys are going to lose games. They're not going to win every single game, but the solace that we can take in it, however much it means to you, maybe it's nothing, is that we can be together and experience it as a community here at Blogging the Boys, which is something we strive to do, and so it is a lot of fun in that sense. Eric says, I hate losing more than I like winning. I totally get that emotion. Totally. Now, back to Odessa's lion avatar, profile picture, etc. I said we were going to do it at the end, but it was just so topic. It was a nice segue. The only winner here, Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons, what an impressive player. What an impressive guy Micah Parsons is. And, Patrick Surtain got hurt in this game, and it's unfortunate. I think we all want to see Patrick Surtain play well. We're sad that he's not on the Cowboys. We're grateful that Micah Parsons is, but we want to see great players play. That kind of goes back to we want to see athletes do things. And so, Micah was incredible. He is far and away the best player on their defense right now. And maybe you don't want to say he's the best player on their defense. By the way, Philadelphia is getting close to the end zone here. 1st and goal. They just ran it up the middle for a couple of yards, but he is definitely the highest floor player for the Cowboys. We can expect the most on a consistent basis from Micah Parsons. And so that's certainly nice. One and Done says, winner Odigizua. I did not have Osa Odigizua on the list, but I would not, have a difficult time placing him on there. Like I said, I went 1 winner, 9 losers, but Osa Odigizua was phenomenal. Cowboys defense, like I said, that their highest floor players are arguably their 2 rookies. You talk about Trayvon Diggs, somebody like that. The ceiling is so high with Trayvon Diggs. It might be higher than anybody else, but the floor is so low sometimes. Not ridiculously low, but it is low. And we've seen that over the last couple of weeks. So, hey, Survivor 722 Gaming says, hey, but we only had 5 penalties, LOL. That's a victory. All right, Cowboys were averaging 8.3 penalties per game entering this contest. So you tell me how to improve. All right, Cowboys clearly improving here. Jeannie says Leighton just didn't get it done. Not a great game for Leighton Vander Esch. I don't have him on the losers list, but I could totally, again, I would not have a difficult time placing him on the losers list. The Philadelphia Eagles did just score, by the way, pending the extra point. This game is going to be tied at 7. Looks like it was a Jordan Howard touchdown. Hopefully you had him on your fantasy team. But, hey, Miguel says this didn't need to happen. All caps here from Miguel. I hate this mentality about needing a loss to humble teams. Good teams beat inferior talent. Miguel has inspired a question, and I'm going to ask it, and I'm going to read your answers. That's the whole point of this. Yes or no? Did this need to happen? So basically, do you agree with Miguel? And Miguel, to be clear, I don't know how I feel. I'm willing to kind of think this out loud here with the group, with the class. But yes or no, in your opinion, did this need to happen? And if so, actually, I'll ask you to add why. If your answer is yes, why you needed it to happen. Because if your answer is no, I imagine you agree with Miguel that, good teams just beat bad teams, et cetera, blah, blah. Now we're split here. Everybody says, we've got yes and no. We've got some all caps yes and some all caps no. So we really have, again, some answers all over the place here. One and Done offers humble pie. That is obviously, an answer encompassing itself. The Cowboys needed to be humble. Maybe you believe that the Cowboys were getting a little bit too big for their britches. Cowboys thought they were too good. They were 6-1. They went and won without Dak Prescott. Watch out. Cowboys went in the Super Bowl. Maybe you thought that. That's fair. Donnie says, yes, for the team to refocus and regain some energy. This is an important stretch. We're now in the month of November, people. Pretty soon, tryptophan's going to be coursing through all of our veins. I mean, we're that close to, that point of the season here. Lots of you, yes or no. G-Man says no, but we can bounce back. Zam DFW says, I will tell you after next week's game. Nice political answer here. Calvin says that Mason Crosby just missed a field goal. I'm seeing that on my screen just now. 40-yard attempt. Mason Crosby, in fact, pulled it left. But let's get back to this discussion. F. Kit Crunch says, yes, the team was starting to get too hyped up, needs a splash of reality. Chris comes back and says, no, absolutely not. Great teams don't give away games. They flat out never showed up. Eric offers, yes, it's called a humble game. Isaac says, yes, sometimes a good old-fashioned butt whooping can spark a fire under them. Let's see here. Kevin, let's see here. This seems thoughtful. It says, yes, bet the Patriots would have rather lost to an inferior Giants team at the end of the regular season than have that loss to the same team in the Super Bowl. In case anybody's wondering, Kevin is talking about the 2007 New England Patriots, the only team in NFL history to go 16-0 in the regular season. Obviously, now there's not 16 games in the regular season anymore, but the New England Patriots very, very famously played the New York Giants in Week 17 of that season, the final game of the regular season. Both teams in that season had nothing to play for. The New England Patriots had already clinched the 1 seed in the AFC. The New York Giants were already entrenched in their wild card spot because our Dallas Cowboys were the number 1 seed in the NFC, not to go down that painful memory lane. But in spite of the fact that neither team had anything to play for, they both played that game all the way to the very end because the Patriots were on the verge of history. The Giants were trying to preserve NFL history. Mercury Morris certainly appreciated it at the time. The Giants lost, but that loss gave the Giants a lot of credit towards winning the Super Bowl, a lot of belief that they could do that. They could hang with that team. That's a story that people have told forever in the NFL. And to Kevin's point, I think a lot of, Patriots from that 07 team would say, you know what, I wish we would have lost. Nobody cared about 16-0. And if we'd lost, we would have been able to refocus a little bit more for the Super Bowl. But getting back to your answers here, let's see here. Watsamata says 17 games is a long season, not possible to be focused every time. Agree with that. And I think this isn't going to make anybody feel better. But again, the Buffalo Bills lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars today. We've seen the Green Bay Packers lose. We've seen the New Orleans Saints lose. I know they didn't lose, but the loss, and there's an emotional factor to this, but the Los Angeles Rams almost lost to the Detroit Lions. Again, the Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff situation, notwithstanding. But we've seen the Baltimore Ravens lose. We've seen the Los Angeles Chargers, the Cincinnati Bengals. Every team who people have crowned as a legitimate, thoroughbred contender this season has lost. They've had an embarrassing game, and this is definitely up there. Astro Joe says it was going to happen. Yes, it needed to happen. Better now than in December or January. Get it out of the system ASAP. And this isn't going to make you feel better either, people. All right, this is a painful thing. You just got to kind of grit it and bear it. If you're going to lose, if you're going to be embarrassed, if you're going to feel all this crap that we're all feeling, you want it to happen and to come against an AFC team. That is the most inconsequential loss that you can have happen. I am 1,000% grateful, assuming a Cowboys bounce back next week against the Atlanta Falcons. I am 1,000% grateful that this happened against Denver as opposed to Atlanta, or even last week opposed to Minnesota. This was the game. If you're going to lose a game, this was the game to lose. We talked about that in week 2 when the Cowboys were going to play the Los Angeles Chargers. Jay, in all caps, says, that's why I said don't buy into that Super Bowl hype. This team has a long way to go. It's a long way to the top if you do want to rock and roll. Let's see here. But Root Wedding says it didn't need to happen, but it does happen. The Bucs had some bad losses last year. That's probably the best comment. But Root Wedding, you are our early contender for MVP here on the show. I like that. And to be clear here, for the people who are saying, no, this didn't need to happen, I'm going to speak for everyone who said yes. Nobody is saying, I wanted this to happen. I've been rooting for the Cowboys to lose. I want to see them humbled. Nobody is saying that. That's not the take. That's not the stance. The idea is, you know what? This was necessary. This was necessary. It's unideal, but the spin zone that we are in now is that this was necessary. We needed this. We're back down to the ground floor, down to earth. All is good. All is well. Let's beat the Falcons next week and have our way with them. Let's see here. Let's go. Brandon says team won't make the playoffs. Don't be that person. In fact, on the subject of that, do not overreact. All right. Do not overreact to this. I know the Cowboys lost and that sucks and we're bothered. This team is 6-2. This team is 6-2. They're 6-2 and their schedule hasn't changed. All right. They're 6-2 and they have 4 games left against the trash NFC East. All right. They are going to be fine. Will they be the 1 seed now? Probably not, but it's still possible. The true primary goal is to be one of the top 3 seeds. All right. That's the goal. They do that, then they put themselves in position to win the Super Bowl. That's all we can ask. That guy, nice general name here, says that game plan was bad. Dallas wanted to win the game in the first quarter of the game. The game is 4 quarters. Make points when you can and keep the opposing teams on their side of the ball. I have zero issue with the Cowboys going for it early in the game in the first quarter. I don't think they wanted to win the game. I think I think the context of what you're saying here, that guy, is they want to win the game all the time. That's who they are. They want to win the game, and that's it. The game got away from them, and it became more difficult, that proposition, but they want to win the game all the time. They do not want to play for overtime. They do not want to live for the fourth quarter. They do not want to bide their time. They want to punch you in the face and punch you on the ground. They want to keep burying you. They want to win the game all the time, which is the disposition that we want to see them have, but it just didn't work out. It just didn't work out today, and that sucks. Let's see. Let's get back here to our losers. We've talked. Micah Parsons is the only winner. Losers, overall energy, Trayvon Diggs, Amari Cooper, run defense, Dak Prescott. Might as well say it. Results from the aggression is kind of out of your control, though it's literally in your control. Again, I loved the idea of going for it early on, but the results just were not there. So it's unfortunate. Sometimes that's football, right? Sometimes that's football. It is what it is. Let's see here. Another loser breaks the game. And you hate to blame officiating, you hate to blame the rules, you hate to blame that. It's a weird game. All right, people. We love a weird game. It's a weird game. It's a weird game played with a weirdly shaped ball where some weird crap happens every week. Think about this. Every single week, there is something weird that happens in the National Football League. Every week, you can set your watch by. Although today, I actually haven't changed my watch back. Haven't set it back. Hope you did. I was all over the place this morning, people, walking around, looking at the stove, the microwave. My mindset was all over. I had no idea what time it was. But it's a weird week, or it's a weird game. And so sometimes weird stuff happens. Sometimes that weird stuff is the way the ball bounces. Sometimes the weird stuff is the way a rule is enforced. Now, Mike Edwards says it wasn't, or this wasn't weird, talking about, I hope you're talking about the blocked punt. What was weird about it was the fact that it happened to touch a Cowboy in the position that it touched. That's it. That's the weird thing. You could try that. I say this often in golf. You could try a golf shot after you pull something off in golf, like an accident, right? Like you hit a tree and it bounces into the fairway. You could then, after that, hit 1,000 balls and try to do that, and you would never do it again, because that's just the weirdness of the sport sometimes. And so the breaks of the game just didn't go the Cowboys' way today, and that sucks. Third down defense is my final loser. Really just, long third downs after long third downs, converted. You know, Teddy Bridgewater's an awesome guy. Love seeing him play. Yeah, obviously a great story, his comeback. And I don't know anybody that isn't a fan of Teddy Bridgewater, the person, but not a great quarterback, right? That's okay. Both those things can be true. Not a great quarterback in the here and now. But he was on Sunday. The Cowboys defense got carved up by Teddy Bridgewater. And that's a hard pill to swallow. That's a difficult thing to make sense of. It's a weird game. It's a weird game. Let's see here. Scanning tweets. Zeke Elliott was asked about the muffed punt block return and said, that sucked. That sucked that we didn't get the ball right there. I just think we need to play better. We need to execute. Nice to see, Cowboys not necessarily, crying about the penalties. Oh my gosh. Check this out from ESPN Stats and Info. You want to feel sad? Let's feel sad together. Dallas trailed 30-0 after entering the game as a 10-point favorite. They are the first team to trail by 30 in a game as a double-digit favorite since Indianapolis against New England in Week 3 of 2001, Tom Brady's first career start. That makes me feel sad, and I don't like it. Wow, that is tough to take. Goodness gracious, that is a difficult pill to swallow. Man, that sucks. And again, sometimes that weird stuff happens, right? Like sometimes you pull off this incredibly weird, specific thing that has never happened or only happened on a random Tuesday or something like that. But sometimes that's what happens. Now, Cecile White has a take that a lot of people have, kind of been leaning on. All other teams just have to watch the tape of this game to know how to beat us. This is not true. All right. I understand you're upset. I understand you're bothered. This is not true. I mean, so what? All of the teams are going to watch this game and say, oh, all we got to do to beat them is convert every third down. That's it. That's all we got to do. All we got to do to beat them is, have a lot of success running the ball. That's all we got to do, people. Boom. Meeting over. See you on Sunday. That's all we got to do. we got to do those super hard things. So I don't think that anybody is going to, there's no blueprint here. Nobody's been exposed. The Cowboys just played really badly, and that's okay. Let's see here. Somebody had an update on the Packers, or you had a comment about the Packers. The Packers, by the way, are on the Kansas City 23-yard line, score 7-0 Chiefs. So we'll see what happens here. Burmy Star says there was no blueprint. We just didn't bring it. That's it, man. I mean, sometimes you don't have it. Sometimes it ain't your day. And it wasn't the Cowboys' day on Sunday against the Denver Broncos. Tina says they got lucky today. Tina, I would push back at this. I don't think Denver got lucky. I think they just beat the crap out of the Cowboys. I mean, they just beat them. They just beat a bad Cowboys team. You could argue the timing of it was lucky, that they played a little bit above expectation and the Cowboys played below expectation, but it was earned. I mean, you got to give the Broncos credit. They had their way with the Cowboys. I mean, they really did. It's been a long time since we've seen a full strength Cowboys team just completely dominated like this. Eric brings up a question, says, RJ, what are the key out of division games left on the schedule? In case you're wondering, or in case you didn't know, 4 of the Cowboys' final 5 games are against the NFC East. So obviously those are important games, but there aren't a lot of non-division games left in that sense. Next week, obviously the Cowboys have the Atlanta Falcons. Maybe you think Atlanta is a wild card contender. That's certainly a data point that you can discuss. After that, the Cowboys have the Kansas City Chiefs and the Las Vegas Raiders. And again, I'm not saying that I want the Cowboys to lose, but if the Cowboys lose one of those games against Kansas City or Vegas, and we're going to say this now, we're going to say this on Sunday, November 7th, if the Cowboys lose one of those games, it's okay. Because if you're going to lose a game, you want to lose that game. Those are the games we want to, if the Cowboys are going to lose, we need it to be against AFC teams. But 7 days after Thanksgiving against the Raiders, the Cowboys will visit the New Orleans Saints. That's probably the second most consequential NFC game left for them. After that, they're 4 or 5 trek starts within the NFC East. But obviously, everyone's going to point to Week 17 when the Cowboys host the Arizona Cardinals. The problem with that, I don't know about problem, but my thought process there is I don't know that is going to have the level of importance that a lot of people think it is. A lot of people have been saying for months now that that's going to be the game for the 1 seed. I don't think so. I mean, and I'm not trying to overreact to this loss. I've been saying for a while, I don't know that the Cowboys are going to get the 1 seed, and that's okay. That's okay. It's fine if they're not the top seed. We want it, but it's okay. It's not the end of the world if they don't. I think the Rams are kind of ticketed for the 1 seed. I think we're going to see the Rams and the Cardinals kind of swap places in the NFC West. We'll see what happens today. Cardinals without Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins, the Rams on Sunday Night Football. But I think the Rams are going to win the NFC West. I think the Rams are going to be the number 1 seed in the NFC. We'll see if the Packers lose today. Obviously, the Buccaneers are on bye. And if you're listening to this or watching this after the fact, you obviously know the results of those games. But that Cardinals game is important. And I think it's important not necessarily because it's going to impact Dallas. And this is something we've talked about a little bit on our roundtables, but that's going to impact the seeding, right? Because Arizona, at the very least, is going to be a wild card team. And so that win against the Cowboys, if they win, if we assume an Arizona, by the way, Calvin updating us here, and I'm about to see this right now. The Packers attempted a field goal, but Calvin knows the answer here. 37-yarder blocked by the Chiefs. That game against Arizona, whether Arizona wins or loses, is likely going to impact, if they're a wild card team, what seed they are. Are they the 5 seed? Are they the 6 seed? Do they drop to the 6 seed? I don't know who in the NFC is climbing above Arizona if Arizona loses the West. But so that's where it's consequential or key in that sense. But the two main ones, I guess, if to take a long way to answer this question for the Cowboys, are Arizona and New Orleans. But people will say Kansas City, people will say Vegas because those teams are really good, but those games mean nothing, relatively speaking. And, I know next week's game against Atlanta doesn't have the same, sex appeal that the Kansas City or Vegas game does because those teams are really good. But next week's game against Atlanta is far more valuable to the Cowboys than today against the Broncos or the week after against the Chiefs or the week after that against the Raiders. The games against the AFC are the most inconsequential, and that's something to just kind of set up in our minds. John says, I picked up the Cowboys defense this week in fantasy. SMH. John, I've been riding the Cowboys defense for a while. I'm right there with you, buddy. But thankfully, my opponent, and I would never, be super happy about this, had Dak, had Zeke, had Dalton Schultz. So, I dodged some bullets there, but hope you won your fantasy team, whoever you are, because that's all we have right now. It's difficult. It's a tough day for the Cowboys, tough loss. They'll be back. They'll be okay. But, a little bit of humble pie, obviously. Not the end of the world. And as we've been saying all show long, all contending teams have had losses like this. Cowboys are not the only contender to have a bad loss. Teams lose. You're going to lose in the NFL. Cowboys are probably going to lose again, and that's okay. It doesn't mean the season's over. It doesn't mean they're not going to have success in the playoffs. They lost. They were not the better team on Sunday. Hopefully they'll be better next week. And I want to reemphasize one thing, all right, because on the subject of playoff positioning and wild cards and whatnot and all these sort of things, Kenneth, by the way, says, think about it. You're talking playoffs and Cowboys in the same sense. I don't know if this is a troll job from Kenneth or if Kenneth is serious. Kenneth, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to, expose you if you're being sincere, but the Cowboys are going to the playoffs. That is, we are certain of this. You can bet your bottom dollar the Cowboys are going to the playoffs, right? This was a little bit of a setback, not really a setback, but this was a disappointment, but they are definitely going to the playoffs. Roger says, being a millennial Cowboys fan, I expect a game like this every month. LOL. Roberto with a great point says the Bills' loss was worse. People won't say that because it's not hip, it's not fun, it's not cool. But I want to emphasize one point because it's something I've seen a lot of, that this is why rooting for other NFC East teams is not necessarily the way to go. And we do a rooting guide every week at bloggingtheboys.com. We tell you what teams it makes sense to root for the Cowboys, if you're a Cowboys fan, obviously. And there's a lot. Obviously, we're rooting for the Cowboys. We're rooting against every NFC East team. We're rooting for the Colts and for the Dolphins and for the Bears because NFC East teams hold their first-round picks next year. We're rooting against the Packers. We're rooting against the Bucks. We're rooting against the Rams because of playoff positioning and whatnot. But like I said early on, there are a lot of people who have said, you know what, man? I'm rooting for the NFC East. All right. I'm rooting for the Eagles to win. I'm rooting for the Giants to win because I don't want their draft pick in the top 10. I want to see them, the Cowboys are going to win this thing anyway. So, let's go ahead. Tell you what, all right, like I'm not saying that the NFC East is at all in jeopardy, but the Cowboys are 6-2. If the Eagles win today, they will have 4 wins. All right. It can flip in the blink of an eye. So you always got to be careful. You got to be careful. The first, foremost, and most primary goal is to win the division. and we want to make sure that that is taken care of. So hopefully it is much sooner rather than later. Hopefully, again, you won your fantasy league. Hopefully you can find some solace in week 9 of the NFL season. Next week is week 10. Next week is the Atlanta Falcons. Things are going to be okay. I promise. If you like the work we're doing here at Blogging the Boys, you want to support us, please subscribe here to the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. That helps us out more than you know. We appreciate subscriptions. If you can like the video, share the video, those things go a very long way for us. If you like our podcast, please subscribe to the Blogging the Boys podcast network. If you haven't yet, please leave a rating, write a review. Those things really, really, really help. We are available on all major podcast platforms. Check out bloggingtheboys.com. My name is RJ Ochoa. You know me, of course, from the BTB universe. You can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at RJ Ochoa. My DMs are open if you ever want to talk about anything. Only hit me up. If you want to email me, if that's your cup of tea, that's your speed, rj.ochoa@sbnation.com. Things are going to be okay. It's going to be okay. But as SA has said here, long week ahead. It's going to be a long week for the Cowboys because they lost. I mean, weeks are better after Cowboys wins and weeks are worse after Cowboys losses. So it is what it is. But thanks everybody for joining. I wish it was a better result. I wish we had a little bit more fun with the Cowboys winning, but they'll be back. They're 6-2. All is well. We love you all. Thanks for joining us. You are the very best, and we hope you have the best day. Have a great day. It's not a Victory Polo Monday coming up, but it's still going to be all right. So thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next time.